Thanks for joining us. And the world today starts now. The battle for Soledar in Ukraine continues, but the Ukrainian soldiers are not giving up. One of the servicemen at the forefront of the battle says intense shelling has risen about 70% in the area, but nothing has changed radically, and that he and other Ukrainian servicemen continue to hold their positions. The ultra-nationalist contract militia Wagner, run by an ally of President Vladimir Putin outside the main chain of military command, claims to have taken Soledar after intense fighting that it said had left the town strewn with Ukrainian dead. But Moscow has held off, officially proclaiming victory. Ukraine's military is tonight, so Soledar has fallen, and President Volodymyr Zelensky mocked Russian claims to have taken over the city, saying in a video address on Wednesday that fighting is still going on. And we can get a sense, some sense at least, of how the fighting is going on in Soledar from this video which we're about to see, in which Ukrainian servicemen are conducting medical evacuations in the town. It's one of those satellite videos of location that Reuters has been able to confirm from the landscape and the buildings. Now, much earlier today, Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Russia is building forces in Ukraine, but the Ukrainian forces are holding out in the fierce fighting east of Soledar. She says Russia is also driving its own people to the slaughter by the thousands. Another senior military official in Ukraine says the military situation remains difficult with the heaviest fighting on the Eastern Front. And maybe a 44-year-old Oksana Minenko, an accountant who lives in the Ukrainian city of Kherson, could tell us more about this. She says she was repeatedly detained and tortured by occupying Russian forces in the city. Her husband, who's a Ukrainian soldier, died defending Kherson's bridge on the first day of the full-scale war. During several interrogations in the spring, Russian forces submerged her hands in boiling water, pulling out her fingernails and beating her in the face with a rifle, but she badly needed plastic surgery after that. Methods of alleged physical torture administered by occupying Russian forces have included electric shocks to genitals and other parts of the body, beatings as well, and various forms of suffocation, according to many of the interviews conducted by reporters on the ground. Some of the people said prisoners were also held in overcrowded cells without sanitization or sufficient food or water for periods of up to 2 months. The Kremlin and Russia's defense ministry have not responded to any questions about this, including about alleged torture and unlawful detentions. Moscow, which has said it's conducting a special military operation in Ukraine, has denied committing war crimes or even targeting civilians. According to the most comprehensive figures to date on the scale of alleged torture and detentions shared exclusively with our partners Reuters by Ukraine's top war crime prosecutor, a country's authorities have opened pre-trial investigations involving more than 1,000 people in the Kherson region who were badly abducted, allegedly abducted and illegally detained by Russian forces during their months-long occupation of the city. In other stories as well, still in Russia, Wagner Group is reporting they have found the body of one of 2 British voluntary aid workers missing in eastern Ukraine. The aid's name is not mentioned, but Wagner says documents belonging to both Britons were found on his body. A photo posted alongside the statement appeared to show passports bearing the names of Andrew Backshaw and Christopher Parry, the 2 missing workers. Ukrainian police say that they have been looking for the pair who went missing in eastern Ukraine, a scene of heavy fighting between Ukrainian and Russian forces. Wagner said in a statement, today the body of one of them was found. Documents for both Britons were discovered with him. It did not give any more details on where the body was found. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu has appointed Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov to oversee the military campaign in Ukraine in a latest shakeup of Moscow's military leadership. Gerasimov, like Shoigu, has faced sharp criticism from Russia's hawkish military bloggers for multiple setbacks on the battlefield and Moscow's failure to secure victory in a campaign that the Kremlin had expected to take in just a short time. A statement from the Defense Ministry said Shoigu had appointed Gerasimov as commander of the Combined Forces Group for the Special Military Operation in Ukraine. It's the most senior position among Russia's battlefield generals. Just last October, Russia put Sergei Surovikin, nicknamed General Armageddon by the Russian media for his reputed ruthlessness in overall charge of Ukraine operations following a series of counteroffensives by Ukrainian forces that turned the tide of the conflict. The defense military says Surovikin will now stay on as a deputy of Gerasimov. The VOA's Anna Chernikova joins us now. Anna, great to see you. And how is Ukraine interpreting this shakeup in the Russian Defense Ministry?
Good evening. Well, Ukrainian General Staff commented on that immediately when this information was out yesterday evening. Basically, they said that this shows problems in Russian military management, and in Russian military operations. And of course, for Ukraine is a good sign because all these changes, all this quite rapid changes, because we can, if we look at the timeline, there were a lot of people already replaced in the Russian top military head. So it's something that definitely shows that the war in Ukraine is not going according to plan for Russia, and that Russian forces and Russian military officials have problems, not only in the management of the forces themselves, but also in the tactical and operational levels. So for the moment, of course, we will see how this would change the battlefield and actions at the battlefield. But of course, any changes like that show that situation is not stable in the military that has such changes.
Indeed. And of course, the military bloggers in Moscow have been criticizing the army. I guess many of them thought that this was going to be a very quick operation in Ukraine. But here they are, months after, still fighting and trying to take over many territories in Ukraine. But fierce fighting is still going on in Soledar as we speak, Anna. Ukrainian forces say they're holding on. Has the president said anything about how much longer the battle in that area could go on?
Well, no one really can. No one really can say for sure. According to President Zelensky, the battle is ongoing, and the battle is very difficult. The battle is very intensive. And also, not only President Zelensky confirmed that, but also Ukrainian general staff and Ukrainian soldiers who are located there. And it's really, really difficult to say how long will this take. What we know for the moment, well, at least for us, for people who don't have, all the operational information, all the operational details of the battle. But what we can say for sure is that Ukrainian forces still hold on. They still protect the area, and they still control a certain part of Soledar. It's difficult to say who controls what and who controls how much, how much of the territory is controlled by who. But what is definite that the battle is really important for both sides, and the city of Soledar is basically a path to the city of Bakhmut. So Russian forces did not manage to take over Bakhmut, and they changed the tactics. They are now trying to get to Bakhmut through Soledar. So this battle would definitely go on until one of the sides wins. And how long will it take? No one can predict. At least, Ukrainian officials who have all the operational data, they're of course not going to say and not going to tell any predictions. But it's definitely that we will experience this battle for some more days for sure.
And just wondering if anyone will be left in Soledar at the end of this battle, which has been going on so violent in the past few days. And let's focus a bit now on Kherson. The stories of torture of civilians and Ukrainian soldiers as well What do Ukrainians make of these? We just learned about Oksana, who said her hands were dipped in boiling water for about a few hours, her fingernails removed, and then all sorts of other torture that, our partners, Reuters, has been also reporting on this because they have correspondents on the ground. What do Ukrainians make of these?
Well, this is a fact, and Ukrainians accept this fact. Everyone understands that this is something that was going on the occupied territories. And this is not only about Kherson. When I was personally in Izum, Kharkiv region, we've heard similar stories, and very similar tortures were also in place. All the areas, and Kiev region as well. So all the areas that have been under occupation, there are reports and there is information, and there is investigation going on that. So all the victims confirm similar things and tell similar stories. So, of course, this is not something that gonna, scare the nation or gonna make nation want to surrender. This is a fact that unfortunately Ukrainians have to accept, and they accept that this has already happened, and this unfortunately is still happening at those territories which are still occupied. And this is happening with people who do not support Russian forces and who do not support Russian occupation. And to be honest, according to the data that is available, most of Ukrainians at their territories who unfortunately didn't have a chance to either leave or escape the occupation, they they still do not support that. So, and unfortunately, they go through these tortures, and especially those who have acted pro-Ukrainian position. So. It unfortunately, as I already said, it is a fact, and this is a part of the history of the modern history of Ukraine, and this is a realization of what Russian forces, what Russian army looks like on the battlefield.
Really sad. Has Ukraine begun receiving those weapons promised by the US and NATO countries, and do we know what areas they're headed in Ukraine?
Well, according to what we hear from Ukrainian officials, the equipment, some of the equipment is already in Ukraine, and basically this supplies never stop. So this is coming all the time. It just depends on what kind of supply, of course. So, for instance, in terms of Patriots, we hear that Ukrainian soldiers are going to start their training very soon, something like a week or a couple of weeks from now. So some equipment, of course, is not yet in Ukraine, at least according to the official data and official reports. But other stuff is coming. So, and we hear again, President Zelensky confirmed just a couple of hours ago, he had a meeting with top military officials, Ukrainian top military officials, and he confirmed that particularly the city of Soledar and the city of Bakhmut, so those soldiers who are currently fighting there, they receive a lot of equipment and everything needed as fast as possible. And I can say that in general, according to what we hear, of course, the main part of the equipment is going to the most to the hottest spots at the front line, and the hottest spots at the front line for the moment is in the east, Donetsk region, and in the south, which is Kherson region, because we should not forget that Kherson region is still. So the counter-offensive actions by Ukrainians are still ongoing in the Kherson region and in the part of the Mykolaiv region. So, of course, some part of equipment is located there. But again, we don't have any official, reports on exact locations of some particular equipment.
Anna, thanks again for reporting on this, and do stay safe in Kyiv.
Thank you.